Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. My name is Blackjack. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different than normal, but if you're interested in having me make a deck for you and make a video about it, give you some inspiration or some ideas for something you're working on or something brand new, in the comment section down below, I'm looking for any of the following metrics: a theme, any pet cards, a budget, and a commander, and I'd be happy to put a deck together for you and display it on the channel. Today we are doing Atraxa Praetors Voice. I have a personal friend, Mason, who is dabbling and getting into Magic, getting into Commander for the first time, has saw some success with Edgar Markov vampires, as many of us have as we've played over the years, and again, as many of us have, we are going to be building him an Atraxa Praetor's Voice Planeswalker deck. I think a Planeswalker deck is a great way to learn the game. It takes a lot of game actions, so you have to be focused, you have to be involved, you have to be assessing who the threat is, whether you should be aggressive, whether you should be defensive. There's a lot of decision points. So once you understand the actual mechanics of Commander, I think this deck is a great way to kind of speed run the learning process of assessing the table at any given time. In addition to that, everyone loves planeswalkers. They do cool things, they do interesting things. So I would say probably 85% of the community has played this deck at any given time or owned it. I will be going a little bit more in depth for you, Mason, as far as into my decisions of why I'm picking certain planeswalkers, what you should be doing with them, why they're here over other things, so that way you can kind of understand my thought process and maybe help you when you're building your next deck. But let's go ahead and get started. So this is Atraxa. If you don't know what she does, she's one of the best commanders around. Sans red, 4 color, flying, vigilance, death touch, lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, proliferate. There's a few different directions you can take with this deck. You can go +1/+1 counters, you can go infect, you can go planeswalkers. I've always enjoyed planeswalkers the most, so that's what we decided to do. So, first off, Mason, when I'm building a commander deck and I'm building around a commander, so I'm building around a commander that does something, whether it's Atraxa proliferating or whether it's Edgar Markov doing stuff with vampires, I'm looking to add between around like 25 and 30 cards that are directly profiting from my commander. So what I mean by that is when I'm building Atraxa, I'm going to look to have between 25 and 30 cards that actively profit from proliferation. And if I were to build Edgar Markov, for example, I'd be looking to play probably between like 25 and 30 vampires. Stuff that can consistently trigger his eminence ability. And in the same way, just for example, if we were to look at any of the commanders, let's just look at top commanders. So if I wanted to build an Dragon deck, and it's going to be based around dragons, I'm probably going to be playing between 25 and 30, maybe up to like that 35 mark of dragons, stuff that's interacting directly with the Dragon. So something that is a little bit more nuanced is when you're not building a theme deck. So if you're not building planeswalkers, you're not building dragons, but you want to build something maybe like, let's see here. Let's use Nekusar. So Nekusar, basically what he says is whenever an opponent draws a card, he deals 1 damage to that player, and at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. So the whole idea of Nekusar is draw as many cards for the table as you possibly can, because they're all going to take damage from it. So when I look at this commander, the first thing I think in my head is I want somewhere between 25 and 35 cards that either draw my opponent's cards or punish them for drawing cards, because that's what my commander does. So I'm using like that parallel synergy whether it's drawing additional cards or dealing damage with my commander, I'm going to play between like 25 and 35 of those things. So, we'll start with these ones. Obviously, there's tons and tons and tons of planeswalkers to choose between. I have a few metrics for my planeswalkers. I want them either to get me card advantage, I want them to be able to be removal for something on the board that I want to be able to get rid of, or I want them to be able to provide consistent threats turn after turn to protect me and then eventually take over and win the game. So when you look at Atraxa, there is, as I said, a bunch of planeswalkers to choose from, right? There's, you might say, how come we didn't play Ugin the Spirit Dragon? So, Ugin is an 8 mana planeswalker. Obviously, it does some pretty powerful things. It can deal 3 damage. It can exile each permanent with current mana cost X or less that's 1 or more colors. And then you can alt to gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and put 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. The reason I didn't put this in my deck is because let's look at the metrics here. The +2, dealing 3 damage to any target, it's okay. It's not amazing, and for 8 mana, it's pretty expensive. The minus, so you're exiling each permanent with converted mana cost X or less that's 1 or more colors. Since we're playing a 4-color deck, that's actually gonna end up exiling pretty much everything we have on the board that's X or less. So it could actively be hurting our game plan as well. And then its -10 is very powerful, but pretty much every commander's ultimate ability is extremely powerful. This one doesn't just win the game outright. It's very good and it has a chance to win the game, but for 8 mana, you're not really getting a ton that pushes your personal game plan forward. This is just a card that's extremely powerful, but in my mind doesn't make a lot of sense for what we want to do. I would rather play something like this at Johnny Mentor Heroes, where you can +1 to look at the top 4 cards of your library, and you can reveal a creature or planeswalker and put it into your hand. So you're actively plussing this guy in order to get card advantage and get more stuff to play. And then his ultimate of gaining 100 life, no, it doesn't win the game, but it puts you so out of reach and buys you so much time that it's still a great ability to have. And obviously it's not something we're going to be going for a lot, but it's still nice. Also, the plus to distribute 1/1 counters. Our commander is extremely powerful. Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink, 4/4. If we just plus and put 3 counters on it and then proliferate it in the course of 1 turn, this is going to become an 8/8 Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink. So in 3 attacks, it takes a player out of the game. It's almost impossible to have opponents hit our planeswalkers through it because it's such a big blocker. This is more in line of the planeswalkers I'm looking for. So remember, we're looking for 3 metrics when we're picking stuff out for Atraxa. We want card advantage, which is pretty much synonymous with every commander. You always want consistent quality card advantage. You always want a way to protect either on defense or an overwhelming offense to the point where your opponents have to figure it out and deal with it. And then you want a way to win the game. A Johnny Sleeper Agent is again another way to plus in order to be able to look at the top card of our library, and if it's a planeswalker, we get to draw it, and then we can also put counters. A Johnny Unyielding is very closely aligned, but it also can exile a creature, so again it has removal, so protection. Dovin Bond has his plus is protection, his minus is card draw. I'm not going to address the ultimates for pretty much any of these guys. I don't consider the ultimate when I'm building because the ultimate is rarely going to happen. In Atraxa, it's more likely than obviously any other commander deck, and we do play doubling season to be able to play stuff and ultimate it immediately. So, for example, with doubling season, your stuff comes in with double the amount of counters, right? So if you play Elspeth Sun's Champion, instead of coming in with 4 counters, it's going to come in with 8. So you can actually -7 it immediately to get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2 and have flying. Very powerful, but when I'm assessing the quality of cards here in Planeswalkers, you don't ever want to look at the ultimate because it's not consistent, especially in non-Atraxa decks, decks that aren't looking to proliferate your commanders and or your Planeswalkers and get them to ultimate status quickly. It's never going to happen in a typical game, so you should not be looking at that third ability when you're assessing. Anyways, Elspeth's plus is making blockers. The minus is a board wipe. Very good. Jace plus is protection. Minus is card advantage. Next Jace. Plus is protection. Plus is card advantage. Minus is protection. Plus is card advantage, or plus is protection. Minus is card advantage. So you can see what we're getting at here. My planeswalkers are doing two things. They're either plussing to get us a card or some form of advantage or protection, and then they're minusing to do the opposite. So all the planeswalkers that I've picked here pretty much are either plussing or minusing to get us advantage or protection. That's all we're trying to do. Oko, pretty much the best planeswalker ever made. This thing can do it all. Sorin, plus and minus. Again, advantage protection. Pretty much the same thing throughout. I'll let you read these on your own as you're building the deck. But what I will say is, again, no, this one's not even readable. It's important to understand why I'm picking these over the other ones. So now that I'm looking at every single thing here, almost every planeswalker that we are playing fits that category of plus minus protection advantage. There's a couple that don't, like Venser, but you still are able to get a crazy amount of advantage by plussing it to allow you to bounce a different planeswalker and be able to activate that planeswalker a second time in a turn and reset its counters. So I hope that helps you understand my thought process when I'm building a deck. Again, I'm looking for between 25 and 35 pieces that are directly synergizing with my commander, whether that's planeswalkers or vampires or dragons or drawing cards, whatever. I'm looking for roughly that amount because you still need 37 slots for lands, and then you need 10 to 12 slots for ramp, and so on and so forth. Creature package, not big. Arena Rector, when it dies, you just get to go get a Planeswalker and put it on the battlefield. We don't have any like synergistic combos, but it is just an interesting way of having a blocker that also leads to you getting something out of it. Karth interacts positively with Planeswalkers. Deep Glow Skate is a one-off doubling season, so when it enters, it can double all the counters, so you can kind of just ultimate Planeswalkers. Dreamtide Whale is a big blocker slash attacker that also lets you proliferate. Any chance we have to proliferate beyond our commander is just going to get incrementally more powerful. Azuri, when you proliferate, draw a card. Onake, creatures can't attack planeswalkers unless they pay 1 for each creature attacking. Sakura Tribelder is the first piece of ramp. Tekuthal is again a way to double our proliferation. So let's get ramp out of the way. We have Sakura Tribelder, Farseek Nature's Lore, Rampant Growth, 3 visits. That's 5. Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, Felwar Stone. So it's the typical ramp you would see in any base green deck that I'm playing. In this one in particular, we've increased the number by adding these 2 mana ramp pieces. I want to be very particular when I say we're playing 2 mana ramp. So this is instead of Cultivate or Kodama's Reach, which I would put in almost any green deck ever. In this deck in particular, I've cut those for more 2 mana ramp pieces. So we have all of the signets. And the reason that we're doing this instead of playing Kodama's Reach and Cultivate is, at least according to ChatGPT, your average game where you draw 7 cards before you start the game, and then you draw 1 card when you start your first turn, and then you draw 1 card before you play your second land. So technically, you've seen 9 total cards before you have your second land in play and have the ability to play a 2 mana ramp piece. You have a 74% chance of hitting a 2 mana ramp piece in this deck. So the way I understand that is it's going to happen 3/4 of the time, and if you take your free mulligan, it's probably going to be closer to like 85 to 90%. So the whole idea is instead of playing the normal 10 up, 10 down, 10 ramp pieces, we're playing I think 14, and they're all 2 mana in order to get Atraxa out at least 75% of the time, if not more, on turn 3. If I were you playing this deck, I would at least take my free mulligan, unless my first hand was God tier, in order to try to find that 2 mana ramp piece and hit Atraxa consistently every game on turn 3. It is going to make this deck so much more formidable and powerful. Anyways, other sorceries, we have a bunch of removal. We have some of my favorite in these colors: Dam, Farewell, Supreme Verdict, and Urza's Ruinous Blast. Again, we're only playing like, what, 8 creatures plus Atraxa, so we're not really worried about wiping the board. And remember that if we have 3 Planeswalkers out and we wipe the board, we basically buy our Planeswalkers 2 full turns of immunity. Because unless creatures have haste, they're going to have to be deployed that next turn, and then they can't attack until the following turn. So you've basically bought 2 full turns of safety for your Planeswalkers to activate and do their thing, which is why I play more board wipes than average in this deck, and I'm not afraid to cast them early and often to buy extra time for my Planeswalkers. Instance, Atomize, destroy an online permanent, proliferate, counterspell, Dovin's Veto, Heroic Intervention, Mutational Advantage. Permanents you control with counters on them gain hexproof and indestructible, plus you proliferate. Prologue to Phyresis. Each opponent gets a poison counter, draw a card. This deck doesn't really aim to win with poison, but it's certainly a win condition. So, I mean, you're not going to look to do it every game. However, you can proliferate poison counters. So, having a card like this where, one out of every 10 games, you might kill a person through poison, I think that's totally cool. And I think it's a random funny thing that can happen. So, why not play it? Ripples of Potential, Swords to Plowshares to Fairies Protection. So again, a lot of these cards are looking to accomplish one goal, and that's protect your board. You are not a control deck. You're not looking to hold up mana on other people's turns. The only time you would is when you have one of these in your hand and you're actively using it to protect your board. So if somebody goes to kill all the planeswalkers or attack you with a bunch of creatures and take out half of your planeswalkers or something like that, you would use Heroic Intervention, you would use Mutational Advantage, you would use Teferi's Protection to save your board. While we're at Teferi's Protection, we do play, I believe, 3 Game Changers. This is a bracket 3 deck. Artifacts other than ramp, we have Clasp and Engine, the Contagion pair. Both very good at not only being able to deal with creatures on other people's boards, but then be mana sinks later in the game in order to proliferate. Anytime, again, that we can proliferate beyond just our commander, it's going to be that much better for us. The Chain Veil allows us to activate Planeswalkers a second time, which is super powerful. As Foretold is a cool card. Basically, what it does is every turn you can cast a card for free out of your hand as long as it has less than or equal to CMC of the counters on As Foretold, and you get a counter on every upkeep. But you can proliferate these counters. So if you get this down on turn 3, maybe by turn 5 or turn 6, it has 4 counters on it, and you can start casting, things like Smothering Tithe for free, which is very, very good. Doubling Season goes without saying, it's the best card in the deck. I didn't put any way to tutor it in here because I don't think that that's something you should be doing with Atraxa. But again, in the 1 out of every 5 or 6 games you get this down and you're able to play a Planeswalker to an ultimate it and just take over the game, I think you earned it at that point. There are decks and there are ways to tutor this up. I would not recommend that because then it just gets a little bit too consistent. Oath of Nissa is a little bit of card selection. Oath of Teferi is another activate ability. And then Smothering Tithe is just good, clean advantage, mana advantage over the course of the game. The lands, there's nothing really to note here. It's just a quality 4 mana land base. We do have Karn's Bastion to have a mana sink and proliferate like the Contagion Clasp and Engine. But other than that, it's just consistent, have all the colors you need. So, again, we look at the bracket info. Actually, we only have 2 game changers, 1 extra turn card, 1 tutor card. This is a bracket 3. I'm trying to make sure most of my decks are around bracket 3 these days by having 3 game changers or less. So I'm just picking the ones that really fit the theme of the deck. But Mason, I hope this helps you understand what you're trying to do with this deck, how to win with this deck. Over the course of the game, you're going to either kill people with Atraxa, you're going to just get an insurmountable advantage of 3 or 4 planeswalkers that are plussing and minusing every turn. It's just going to get super out of hand. People are going to give up, or if you have to, you are going to start ultimating your planeswalkers. Let's just look at Kira, for example. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, put a 9/9 blue Kraken onto the battlefield. So every end step from here on out for you, you're just going to get a 9/9 blue Kraken. And eventually, if you play the right way, that will win the game. So I hope this in-depth review helps you understand my thought process and gives you a better idea of how to build going forward when you tackle building your first deck. And I hope the rest of you enjoyed it. And as always, Godspeed.